Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to Upkick MMA. It's 395. I am Brendan. UFC Fight Night. Lewis versus Nascimento. First one of these, not in the Apex, in a while. Fight Night. Honestly, these are more interesting than watching Fight Night stuff. It's just the crowd gets involved. It's more fun. I feel like the energy's up. The fights are different. I think we've played it out in the UFC Apex. I think it can always be there. I think. You can have 20 fights a year there, 15 fights a year there, whatever it is. But for the rest of the 56 fights that need to happen, for the rest of the 35 fights that need to happen, pay-per-views or put them somewhere else, please. And please come back to Chicago. God dang it. Anyway, we're going to talk about all the fights on this card, break them all down round by round, talk about what happened. If you like this kind of thing, subscribe to the channel. That way the next video is coming out. I'd appreciate it. Let's go. All right. Derrick Lewis taking on Rodrigo Nascimento. Classic Derrick Lewis fight. If you wanted Derrick Lewis to do his thing where he does nothing, then throws a couple of big punches, then does nothing, gets taken down, gets up with no technique, does nothing, throws some big punches, and then takes his pants off and says some funny shit, you got it. That's what this was. Meeting in the middle, they throw in tight in the clinch and then they get up against the fence. They go back and forth. Lewis, he got the trip and took him down, but then does nothing with it because he doesn't want to go to the ground, which is weird because they figured he'd get him down there and want to go for some ground and pound. Clinch against the fence, going back and forth for the first couple minutes. Lewis with the blitz, but just nothing landing, and then back against the cage. Nascimento with the takedown and the crowd booing. Way to go, St. Louis. Here I am over the past year, and no, probably longer, having the impression that the bias of the hometown fighter or home country fighter really only takes place outside the United States because we just don't have a lot of unity here behind our fighters. But far be it from me to show that St. Louis can show out when it comes to like U.S. pride. Really odd too, because they booed immediately when Nascimento got the takedown. Lewis was able to get out and get on top near the end of the round, but he lost this one for sure. He got outstruck here 15-9. He landed maybe a couple good shots early on in the tight sequence, but nothing much. 10-9 to Nascimento. Second round, Lewis landed a couple right hands, but Nascimento didn't go away, so they clinch. Sloppy heavyweight stuff. Lewis overextending again. Nascimento gets him down with a trip, and he's on his back. Nascimento had control and some damage on the ground, but Lewis landing some big shots on the feet. I had it 19-19. If you look at the striking numbers here, that's what we see. 17-12 in favor of Lewis. And then this last round, he throws some big shots and lands a right hand and gets a finish. Just no, he never changes, man. Never changes. There's no way you could look at him from what is it, 10 years ago now? It's got to be 10 years, right? And then look at him now and tell me you see literally anything different. Every single time we come up to these fights, they're like, oh, Derrick Lewis is practicing running. Oh, Derrick Lewis is... Oh, he's working on his jab. He's working on this. He's working on that. Oh, he's been doing a lot of... You can... I fell for it one time, and I don't remember which fight it was for. But... And I don't remember what it was. I don't know if it was a Spivak fight or I don't think it was Tuivasa. He's trading wins and losses now. Let's see if he can put two together, maybe put himself back into the title picture, maybe get a title shot before he inevitably retires here. But it's just one of those things where, oh man, what was it? I don't remember which fight it was. There was this time where they were like, oh, look at Derrick Lewis. He's taking it serious now. Oh, he's running. He never runs. Oh, look, he's got abs. He never has abs. Oh, this. Was that the Almeida fight? The Lima? I don't remember. One of these fights, he went through this whole thing, and they got me. I was like, okay, maybe Derrick Lewis isn't going to change. Nope, they'll never get me again. I don't care what you tell me. I don't care if he comes in at 225 pounds and you tell me he's been working his ass off. I refuse to believe anything you tell me until I see any different. Because that's exactly what we have. It's Derrick Lewis being Derrick Lewis, which a lot of people love. Right? I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think in his current position where he is, as long as he's not threatening for a title or clogging up the division with that bullshit, I think it's fine. I think it's entertaining, fun to see, all that stuff. I think he's a fun test to throw people in there like, hey, can you handle a big hitter who can just stand up? I think he's a good test for that. So that's good. But once you start putting him in the title picture again, it's like, okay, come on. We've seen how this goes, guys. We know exactly what happens. We've seen it multiple times. Do we have to go through it again? My answer is I hope not. But fun fight for him. All right, Joaquin Buckley versus Nursulton Ruziboev. This was not the most disciplined night. We'll get into those when we start talking about that stuff. Ruziboev is looking to land the right hand as Buckley moves in, but Buckley's slipping. He's doing a good job with head movement. Ruziboev is so freaking tall. I thought, again, there's some fights on this card where they just don't look like they're in the same weight class, and this was one of them. Buckley catches him midair and gets a takedown. Beautiful double leg. Ruziboev landing the right hand, then running after him. Buckley catches him again, gets a takedown again. I felt like Ruziboev landed more in this round. Now it shows that Buckley outlanded him 8-7. I felt like Ruziboev landed the bigger shots. I gave him this first round. I don't feel like there was much done on the ground. You know, that minute of control time I don't think really meant anything outside of change of position. So if this went to Buckley, I totally understand. I gave it to Ruziboev because I felt like he landed a couple big shots in there. Now, going forward, that shit just didn't fly. Second round, another takedown for Buckley. Ruziboev looking for that right hand. That's pretty much all he looked for all fight. Holy shit, Ruziboev has one plan. There it is. I wrote it down. As the right hand counter. He lands it, and then Buckley lands and gets the takedown. All right, Buckley landed some ground and pound, and with the lack of activity, that's the big difference maker. 14-8 for striking numbers, not a whole lot. Multiple times Buckley is talking to Ruziboev, making him like, a lot of these fighters where they're 100% counter fighting. It makes for some boring fights. Yes, it can make for some exciting ones, and then they get the UFC / Twitter hype train behind them. Like, oh, this guy's a fucking monster. No one can touch him, this and that. And then put them in there with a fighter who doesn't want to just blindly rush in and engage with them. And you get moments like this. Where it's just a lot of nothing. And that's what we had, And then Buckley even beats him at his own game, essentially. It makes him step in and then counters him. That did not happen that often, but I gave Buckley. I had him win in the second round, and then this third round, all Buckley. Buckley catches him with a right hook and a left, and Ruziboev goes down. Some up kicks that are fucking illegal, so that was really nice. Kicking like a goddamn child out there, kicking him in the head when Buckley's still on the ground. Just like a straight child. Something your kid would do is just like flailing their feet like a child. Ruziboev also looks really tired, which does not bode well for a 5-round fight. If his ambitions are to get the title, 5-rounders are going to be in his future, and this does not bode well for that. So unless he's finishing everybody in the first 2 rounds, it's going to be rough for him. I also say that there was somebody else who had that issue. Buckley gets into the mount as they slip, so they entangle their legs, and Buckley gets a little bit of a takedown there, a trip, whatever you want to call it, a slip, whatever it might be, but he gets on top. Tons of ground and pound. Could have called the fight, in my opinion. Ruziboev was just sitting there flailing his arms around. That's not active defense. Ruziboev gets on top, fights out of it, gets on top, doesn't quit, and then immediately gets swept and then ends up on bottom again. And then guess what he does? Kicks him in the head yet again like a child, just swinging his legs around. Totally ridiculous. I think I do want to look at the scorecards here to see who Saul D'Amato saw it like I did. Chris Lee and Henry Guerri had it for Buckley all 3 rounds. Saul D'Amato had it 29-28. So that first round, I totally understand. That I think that it could have gone either way, depending on how much you graded those big shots that came from Ruziboev. If you felt they were big shots, you felt there's a lot of damage behind them, whatever. Not to skip over this, Buckley calling out McGregor. I don't think it's going to happen. Normally, I'm not a fan of the obligatory, at this point, McGregor call out from a lot of these fighters. But I will tell you, the way he did it, insulting him, insulting his family, his bloodline, all that stuff, bold. Bold. I still don't think it's going to happen. Bold move, I think, is you're going to shoot for the star, shoot for the moon, right? If you miss, you land them on the stars. Blah 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 blah. Anyway, good fight for Buckley. Alonzo Menifield getting clocked by Carlos Ulberg. No stats to look at here. Menifield rushes in, they go at it. Ulberg gets the best of it, puts him down, and then the fight is called off. So Carlos Ulberg is what? He's had one loss in the UFC against Kennedy in a fight that he was winning, like every other Kennedy Zechekwu fight. But outside of that, Tufan Chukwi, Nega Mariano, Potieria, Daewoo Zhang, and now Alonzo Menifield. Yeah, all finishes too. No, Charant was not a finish. Yeah, the dude, I've said this before, so for those of you guys out there who have not watched me or haven't heard me talk about this guy in a while, he's just Luke Rockhold 2.0, right? Maybe not 2.0, maybe 1.2. He's got a very similar styling, similar stance, similar disregard for his opponent, like his demeanor, all the D's. But he's really, really good, right? And so is Luke Rockhold. But eventually his lack of respect for his opponents, right? The fact that he just did not give a shit about what was coming back at him, caught him. And Bisping put him out. So Carl Ulberg can obviously lose, but all the people he's fighting, and the difference is this is at light heavyweight. Light heavyweight just doesn't have the same amount of talent as middleweight does. Skill for skill, I would put middleweights against light heavyweights. Not size, skill for skill. All right, Diego Ferreira versus Mateusz Rebecki. Looked like it was going to go the distance. It did not. Rebecki, if you didn't see his picture, go look at Rebecki's picture from the hospital. His eyes, man. Rebecki was in his face, swinging hooks, ducking his head, ducking his head way too much, setting himself up for the uppercut, but he's landing that left hook and feints multiple times. Ferreira's finding the mark with that left hook, using the high kick and trying to keep Rebecki off of him. Rebecki can keep, if he could keep this pace, Ferreira's in trouble. I've seen Ferreira wilt. It happened against Gregor Gillespie. He couldn't. Right? It's not quitting necessarily. His body just gave up. He just had no energy left, and Gregor Gillespie broke him. I've seen him break, and Ferreira does that to other people. So it really comes down to a cardio and will test when it comes to Ferreira fights at this point. Obviously, you have to have the skill, but all those other things. So if huge left hook drops Ferreira and multiple rights on the ground, it wasn't able to get the finish, and he took some decent strikes coming back his way this round as well. So 30-21 for striking numbers in favor of Rebecki, but those 21 strikes really did start to take a toll on Rebecki's face. Second round, Rebecki starts hot, hits those legs. Ferreira's going away and standing his ground. He's not going away, standing his ground more, and he's starting to put it together. Clean double leg for Rebecki, back up immediately, and then that's it. His eyes are shutting, he's slowing down, he just can't do anything, and Ferreira is laying out the damage. He didn't wilt like he did against Gillespie, so his energy management was much better in this fight. So 40-16, really starting to put it on him. Obviously, this is a 10-8 round. Or no, it could be. This could be a 10-8 round. Next round. So I had it 19-18, but if you had it any other way, I totally understand. Rebecki looking to almost counter with the modified Philly shell, but he just has no energy left. Ferreira landing whatever he wants and defending the takedown, gets on top, landing the ground and pound. Rebecki gets up with 45 seconds left, and then eventually Ferreira gets back on top and gets the finish. Fantastic finish from Ferreira. Looked great. I still think he's a tough challenge for most fighters in the division. I think he's a good gatekeeper for the division, but I don't think he'll ever challenge for a title. And this isn't to be harsh on him. It's just the skill level, what I've seen from him, and the opportunities that he's going to have over the next couple of years. I just don't see it lining up in his favor. That's all. Alex Caceres versus Sean Woodson. Oh, this one bummed me out. I really am curious about the striking numbers. Wow. Okay. Yep. That's what I thought. Very close. Woodson with the jab and the low kick fighting at range. Caceres was having a real problem. They just don't look like they're in the same weight class. Sean Woodson so much taller. His head's fucking gigantic. Looks like an Easter Island head. Caceres darting in with some lead hooks and then following with the straight. If Caceres wants to just go the same volume, he's going to need to land some big shots to sway the damage in his favor. And the problem was, in this first round, he wasn't landing big shots and he was getting outstruck. Caceres actually landed a spinning back kick to the nuts. Really hard one, but straight on the cup, which can be fine because the straight pushing to the cup doesn't hurt as bad sometimes. Right? It's the up ones that hurt worse, in my opinion. Nothing from Caceres gave Woodson any pause in this round. So I had him up 10 to 9. I had Woodson up 10-9. 31 to 18 for striking numbers in his favor. Woodson's just doing such a good job with that jab, controlling distance with those kicks too. Caceres trying to pressure his way forward, landing some good shots, but Woodson just finding the mark more often and using the jab. And then something started to shift. Caceres spins his way in, able to land a combo up top, but again, nothing making Woodson move, but he's keeping the pressure on, and he's outstriking him. And then all of a sudden, we find here, Caceres is able to move out of range and slip the jabs and the low kicks, and he's putting enough out there, in my opinion, to win this round. And you look at the striking numbers here, 32 to 31. They are in favor of Caceres. There was no ground time, very little clinching, and he was the one pressuring forward. So all other things being considered, right? All other things being equal. Let's say damage is equal, output's equal, all this stuff. Cage control comes into a factor, and Caceres controlled the cage more often. He was the one pressuring forward. He was the one trying to end the fight, in my opinion. If you go back and watch that, I gave this round to Caceres. Like, close round, but I gave it to Caceres. Last round, Caceres counter-striking is very good, but when he's down, he falls. His counter-striking is very good, but when he does it, he just falls behind on volume. So then he stops that, starts picking it back up. Woodson has slowed down a lot, and it just does not bode well for his 5-round future aspirations, just like I said in the co-main event. Caceres keeping the pressure on, taking some big shots early in the round. I gave it to Caceres. He wanted it bad. He put in the work. He did enough. He got outstruck here, I guess, by 39 to 32. I didn't see it. I thought Caceres outstruck him in this last round. Those could be wonky numbers, or I could be off. Maybe it was what I saw. Yeah, and the thing is, Woodson was going to the head. He was head hunting quite a bit. 27 of those significant strikes went to the head, whereas Caceres was mixing up to the body. Yeah, that's the problem. Body work is great, just like leg kicks are great. They're really good for fighting. Strategy, it slows people down, wears on their cardio, wears on their movement. But as far as scoring damage, it just doesn't score the same. So I could see why people would give this Woodson. I actually gave it to Caceres. I'm a Caceres fan, so it probably swayed me a little bit, but I don't think so. I like I said, I just explained why I thought Caceres won. Henry Gary gave the second round to Woodson. Just no love for Caceres here. Saul D'Amato gave that second round to Caceres, and Brian Pucillo, he gave it to Caceres as well for that second round, but all three judges gave it to Woodson. Unfortunate for Caceres, because I thought, oh man, 5 rounds, that looks totally different. I've spoke to this before. We're gonna talk about this for a second, because I'm barely gonna talk about the fight that opened the card, because that was bullshit. What are you guys' thoughts? Because mine on the 3-round versus 5-round fights, right? So my thought has always been, if you're a good 5-round fighter and a mediocre to above average 3-round fighter, because there is a difference, right? We have fighters who are clearly meant to be 5-round fighters, and we have fighters who are clearly meant to be 3-round fighters. And the thing is, like, if you can win 3 rounds every single time, well, here's the thing. Some of those 3-round fighters are really good at winning 2 rounds out of 3. First and last, first and second round, whatever it might be, but then they have to take 1 round off. And that doesn't always translate to 5 rounds. In fact, many times it doesn't. And then we have guys who come on later, right? Who are their strategy is to keep their output, keep the pressure, whatever it might be, wear on their opponent, and then they start to come on later in the second round, which usually doesn't win them a second round, which means they're already down 2-1, or they're already down 2 rounds going into the third round. But in a 5-round fight, that doesn't matter, because if I'm down 2 rounds, I got 3 more rounds to work, and now you're in my house, right? Now you're going to be feeling pain for the next 3.5 rounds because you have nothing left. So if a fighter who can't, let's just say an extreme. This is not Woodson. I don't think this is Woodson. I think he can make some adjustments and be a decent 5-round fighter. I think, let's say a fighter just physically cannot make it 5 rounds. Like, this guy cannot win 5 rounds. Should he ever be in title contention? Because, you know, you're going to have to give some of these guys never even fight a 5-round fight before they get the title. So should he ever be in title contention if he can't fight a 5-round fight? Let's say you give him a main event and he fights 5 rounds and he looks like dog shit, right? And then he goes on a win streak for a bunch of 3-round fights, and now he puts himself in a position for a title shot. We've already seen what happens when he fights 5 rounds. He just can't win. Like, he'll win the first 2 rounds literally every single time, but he can't win past that. Can you ever give him a title shot? Why would you do that? Now, you can say, oh, well, it's not just about winning rounds. He could get the finish in the first 2 rounds, so I understand that. But if you're never scheduled for 5 rounds, regardless of whether or not you finish it in those 5 rounds, so that's fine. What I'm saying is, like, if you're never scheduled for 5 rounds and you never show that you can win a 5-round fight, regardless of the round you win it in, I don't think you should ever be considered for a title. And then on the opposite side, like, it sucks because you have these guys who clearly are made for 5 rounds and can carry this for 5 rounds, but in 3 rounds, it just, their strategy isn't the best. And when they make adjustments, it opens them up. They're just not built for a 3-round fight. So I think it creates almost, there's obviously overlap. There's fighters who are great in 3 rounds, great in 5 rounds. It doesn't matter what you give them, they're going to win. But I think it creates almost like a split between, like, specialties, right? Here, look at it this way. 3 rounds and 5 rounds is as different, in my opinion, as the Pride rule set and the UFC rule set. I would say it's more different than the PFL rule set and the UFC rule set, right? In Pride, you had knees to the head of a grounded opponent were fine, but you had no elbows on the ground. You were allowed to elbow on the feet, but no elbows on the ground. So it's a totally different. Oh, and they had the ring instead of the octagon, which is the cage, right? So we had guys who were really good in Pride who came over and weren't good in the UFC. And we had guys in the UFC who went over to Pride were no good. And yes, there's a million other factors that go into that too, right? But let's just say it was the settings and the rule set that changed. I mean, some people from Pride never really embraced elbows on the ground, right? Like Crow Cop, he didn't embrace them until later in his career. And I mean, it worked for him later in his career, but like early on, he thought they were a waste of time. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, you obviously also had overlap, people who are good in Pride and good in the UFC. So with a 3-round and 5-round fight, is there a possibility? I don't even have an answer. Now I'm just talking like philosophy here, but it creates almost like an opportunity for a fighter who is excellent at 5 rounds but mediocre at 3. If he can get the right circumstances to put himself into a position to get some main events and then the title shot, you're talking about a guy who dominates. But if that same guy never gets the opportunity to fight for 5 rounds and he just wallows away in mediocrity for his entire career, like, that guy missed his opportunity, and he could have been one of the best. So it's almost like 2 different fights or 2 different types of fights. Anyway, all right. I just thought about that again. I often have that thought about the 3-round versus 5-round fights. All right, Waldo Cortes-Acosta versus Robelis Despaigne. This fight sucked. I don't really want to go over it. Cortes-Acosta is a joke. Anybody who points down tells people to come on, right? If anybody ever does this number where they're like, come on, let's go, and then immediately shoots a takedown, I lose all respect for you. Especially when you're the same person talking shit about other people trying to take you down. Okay? So you can say whatever you want as far as like fight strategy. Be like, oh, that's good strategy though. You get him to come in so he can get you change. Yeah, totally. Sure. I have no respect for that. That's like someone who points down at the ground to like, hey, look at something, and then kicks him in the face or something, or goes. That's almost as bad as a fake fist bump right to a punch. Might as well just kick the guy in the nuts. That's how dirty I think that is. It's fucking stupid, is what it is. I think he's, like I said, I think he's a joke. He's full of himself. I saw it 2 years ago. It just hasn't changed, right? He spends more time waving his finger saying things don't hurt than he does actually improving his technique or working on something else. Despaigne is just as much to blame here. Like, he couldn't get off his back to save his life, looked like a fucking turtle out there, letting a guy who probably couldn't take down a junior wrestler in high school control him on the ground for essentially 15 minutes is unreal. It's really bad. He has a lot of shit to work on. Both of these guys have a lot of shit to work on unless they change some stuff significantly about the way they're going to operate going forward. Do not watch this. It is a waste of your time. That's it though. Very rarely do I just outright not break down a fight. There's nothing to break down. He would wave him in, went for a takedown, got him down on the ground, and held him there. And then for those, okay, real quick, a side note, just in case people have made it this far in the video, awesome, thank you. But if you've made it this far and you've never seen a video of mine before, and you're like, oh, this guy just doesn't like wrestling or doesn't like grappling. If you watched that and you thought that was effective wrestling or grappling, shame on you. If you didn't watch it and you're saying, oh, this guy doesn't watch grappling, go watch it and you tell me if that was effective grappling or wrestling. And then lastly, I love grappling. I love it. Effective grappling, I love it. I really do. I think it's one of the most beautiful things to see somebody hit a switch, to somebody running the pipe on a single leg, to fighting for that third or fourth move in a wrestling sequence to get to the back, the duck unders. Like all of those beautiful sequences, and then on the ground, getting the sweeps, getting the guard passing. I think all of that's beautiful stuff. None of that happened here. Okay, none of those things that are cool to watch happened here. We had a grown man laying on top of another grown man for 15 minutes. I've said this before. I said this. Was it Rodrigo Lima fight when he laid on top of somebody? I forgot who he did it to. And he didn't attempt a single ground strike in one of the rounds. This is what I'm talking about when I say, if you ever showed one of these, if somebody came in for the first time and watched this stuff and was like, they heard all the stuff like, oh, it's just two grown men hugging each other on the ground, like, oh, they're just guys in their shorts hugging each other, and they saw this, it immediately validates all of those things. That's why I fucking hate it. All right, that's it for this one. I'm going to break down all the prelims in the next video. I appreciate you all for stopping by. Subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of stuff. That way you know the videos coming out. I'd appreciate it. Hit the like button if you did like this video. Have an amazing week. Peace.